Hello, and welcome to episode 35 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner and myself, Seth Hellman. Rabbi, how you doing today?
Baruch Hashem, very good. So I just got back from New York, like about a half an hour ago. This is on the fling. What happened was our daughter came home Monday night. She had an appointment here on Tuesday, and she says she came by train. She said, are you driving to New York on Tuesday by any chance? And I really had no plans to do it, but in the back of my mind, I was ready I needed to go to New York. Hey, Tavis was on Sunday. It wasn't at the oil. I just had this feeling I needed to go to New York. So so we did drive to New York yesterday, got there last night. And today was a busy day, starting with the 7:15 minyan. And then I went upstairs and helped my father to put on tefillin and talis and tefillin. Then one of the things I had a little list of things I wanted to do, get some groceries and stuff, but I wanted to also participate in the Hey Tavis major Sefarim sale at Kahas. But they open at 10 o'clock. I already went to the grocery store. It's only 9:30. So I went to 770, answered some Kaddish and Kedusha, some random minyan, learned my Chumash for the day, got into some Rambam for the day. And I'm standing outside 770, and this guy comes over to me. I know who he is. When I was in London, I used to learn with his father. When I was in a shlichus as a bacher to yeshiva in London, I used to learn with his father. So I know him. I think he may have learned in the Leibel yeshiva here in Boston, maybe as a bacher. I don't remember. And he sees me and he says, makes the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehachiyanu v'kimanu b'nu la'ana zeh. Like, whoa. So that was like, whoa, this guy really is happy to see me. So I'm going to read to you the halacha and Shulchan Aruch. It goes like this. Where was it? Here we go. Oh man, hold on. It talks about if you haven't seen somebody in 30 days. Yeah. If someone sees his friend who's dear to him, harbe, very much, and he rejoices and has pleasure in seeing him. That's a really good friend, right? If he hasn't seen him in 30 days, yuvara shechiyanu. Right? Shechiyanu. After 30 days. If you haven't seen him in 12 months, so even if he had regards from him, either written or oral regards, nonetheless, because the main joy of the bracha is seeing him face to face.
So God forbid I don't see you until June. I have to make...
Wait. The Gam HaNashim and also women also make this bracha when they see their friends, when they're happy to see them. V'chein ha'ish al isha, and a man can make the bracha for a woman as well. Kigoin, imay oibitoi v'achaisei, his mother, his daughter, or his sister. That's the halacha. Fascinating, right? Now I'm going to tell you a little Rebbe story. I've told this before, but... So when I went into Yechidus, so people would go into the Rebbe for a private audience, and there was different occasions, like life cycle occasions, you do that. Some people go in for their birthday, even married couples, sometimes when the husband's birthday, he'd go in for Yechidus. Everybody wanted to go to Yechidus. You had to have a good reason, because the Rebbe's schedule was jam-packed. So Bar Mitzvah is one of those occasions you're allowed to go into Yechidus. I'm not going to tell you the whole Bar Mitzvah Yechidus. That will say, because my birthday actually is this month, 28th day of Tavis. Maybe during that Pos-cast we'll get into that. Anyway, but this part is relevant to what I'm telling you. So my mother, Allah Shalom, her parents, blessed memory, came along to go into Yechidus, come in with us to the Rebbe's room. Now, my mother's parents were German Jews. They were born in Germany. My mother was born in Germany. So they weren't Chassidim. They knew about the Rebbe because they knew us, they knew my father. So obviously they knew who we were, who the Rebbe was. But the only time he came was like when I got an aliyah from my bar mitzvah. My grandfather came to 770. He didn't push or anything. He sat in the back. But when he came to Yechidus, the Rebbe stood up and gave him his hand. He stood up from his desk and gave him his hand. Shalom Aleichem. And the Rebbe said, "This is the first time we've met." Now, if the Rebbe says something to you, whether you think it's correct or not, you don't say anything, do you? Right? You don't say argue with the Rebbe or correct the Rebbe. But my grandfather said, we met by the wedding, meaning to say, at my parents' wedding, the Rebbe my parents' wedding was the first wedding after the Rebbe in 1951, and that is Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon, coming up soon, and so that my grandfather says we met at the wedding. He said at the wedding, and the Rebbe knew exactly what he meant. So the Rebbe, without hesitation, said, yes, but the halacha is if you don't see somebody for a year, you say Shechiyanu. Now, at this point in my life, I don't know why, I knew the halacha, and I was thinking, Chaya Mason, right? We just read 30 days say Shechiyanu. Of course, I didn't say anything. I just thought about it, and I've always thought that it would be like rude to say to somebody, I haven't seen you for a year, make a bracha Mechaya Mason, because that's like, you tell me you were like dead, and it doesn't contradict because it's after 30 days, whatever. Anyway, that was the Rebbe story. So when this guy said the bracha, I was like, whoa! I immediately gave him a big hug because obviously he was so happy to see me. I didn't make the bracha because
You weren't this happy.
I wasn't upset, but it wasn't like, oh man, this is so exciting. But the funny thing is that I used to learn with his father, and in London, his father was married and whatever, was one of Alabatim, the comer. So when I left, he gave me a nice Tanya in a slipcase, a nice red Tanya, and he wrote an inscription on it. And so Yutas Kisa, when we started learning Tanya from the beginning again, for some reason I decided that I'm going to learn every day. I want to learn it before I go to shul. At my dining room table, I put his Tanya on the table, and so I've been using the Tanya now since Yutas Kislev, which is what is it? Where is we now? It's almost like whatever, almost a month, whatever. And I was thinking about this kid, this guy. He's not a kid anymore. I said, next time I see him, I want to tell him that I'm using his father's Tanya. So when I saw him today, he's like, you're Tanya. The other thing I had to do, I went to the oil and I met some alumni who always says, why don't you tell me when you're coming to New York? I would come to the oil with you. So I called him, and he actually met me there, which is like unbelievable. And he was there on time. In fact, he was a minute early. I was 2 minutes later. We were supposed to meet at 12:15. He was there at 12:14. I came at 12:16 because I got lost. Anyway, the other thing was, and this connect to Leibel, because Leibel lives in Pittsburgh, and a prominent member of the community passed away this week, and they're sitting Shiva today in Crown Heights. Yosef Yitzhak Itkin. So I went there to be Menachem Avon, and I walked in there, and of course, and there's two guys talking, and it was a small room, and I was talking to a couple of guys sort of in the back. Other people were talking with the mourners. I was going to wait to move up and talk to them, which I did later on. And one of them was my nephew from Toronto, whose wife it was her father, and another guy who's a friend of my son Meir. And what do they say to me? They say, it's Wednesday. When are you going to do the Pos-cast?
Oh, nice.
Whoa. And then they start talking about
listeners.
So they start talking, and they say, you know how many people listen? I said, now I know two guys listen. Two more than I knew before. And then they start talking about their favorite episode. Guess which one it was? The cottage cheese.
The cottage cheese is such a great story.
And so they said, why don't you tell more personal stories? That's why I was happy to tell you that story with my grandfather. Everything fits in. I didn't tell them. I was talking then to Rabbi Yitkin, his son was there, talking about Pittsburgh, about this, about that. They said to me, "Oh, you got a lot of Boston people in Pittsburgh." I didn't mention that you're going to be on the Pos-cast. I don't want to like let people find out when
You don't want to overwhelm the servers.
So that was, and then I drove back today. It was, yeah, and here I am. Okay, so that was what I did yesterday, last night, and today. Going to the aisle was powerful. I wasn't there long because Ari, who came along, had an appointment. I had to get to Manhattan. I was going to meet another alumni there, but it was meaningful. It was powerful. It was great. A great connection. So now let's talk about Leibel here. Leibel Cohen, our guest. So Leibel, you introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself, and then we'll get to what we consider a major accomplishment of yours, amongst many others.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm Leibel Cohen. I grew up in the Boston area in a town called Weston, a little town about, 12 miles west of Boston. Very wealthy suburb. My parents were not religious. We had some Judaism. I went to Hebrew school. I learned how to read Hebrew. I learned enough to get my bar mitzvah, though no one ever introduced me to tefillin, so I didn't really know what they were. And after the bar mitzvah, like so many Jews, I just abandoned it and went on my way. I went to a prep school in North Andover, highly Protestant prep school with a few Jews. And after that, I went to Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. So
sorry to interrupt real quick. Did that happen to be Phillips Andover? Or
no,
was
it was
where
Brooks.
did you end up going?
I went to Brooks.
Oh, okay. See, I went to Pingree.
Okay. Pingree, isn't that New York? Is that in Massachusetts also? Or is that New York?
Yeah, Pingree is in the same league as Brooks. We played Brooks in many sports.
I remember Governor Dummer and Rivers, but I don't remember Pingree.
I went to Lubavitch Yeshiva.
Who did you play?
Pingree is very close to Governors.
Okay, so that was a long time ago. I don't remember all the schools in the league. It's a small prep school. There may be 250 students when I was there. I think it's grown a little bit since then. But
fair, Pingree was probably an all-girls school when you went to Brooks, which would be why you wouldn't be.
Okay, so I've heard the name, but I didn't know it intimately, and probably I skipped that dance. Yeah, they probably had the school dance, and I probably skipped that. There was very little Judaism. There's no Judaism at Brooks, although I do remember at Passover once in the dining hall, they took all the Jewish students and they put us on this platform in the front of the room, and we had our Passover dinner in front of all the Goyim. So it was a little strange, in retrospect, that they did that to us, but I was too young to know any better. So I participated in that event. At any rate, it was through a friend of mine at Brooks who went to Yale afterwards that I got introduced to Torah Judaism. He went to Israel, he got inspired, he became more religious, and he started to invite me to come over to Yale for a Friday night dinner while I was at Wesleyan. And he nudged me a lot. I don't think I had any interest in doing it. And I finally went, and I was very taken by the wholesome atmosphere that was going on there, the Yale Kosher Kitchen, which I later came to understand was something that was probably due to the Rebbe's directives in the 60s, where he encouraged universities to have kosher dining halls and make events. And that was one of those things. All the Jewish students at Yale, whether Reform, Conservative, or Orthodox, they prayed in their respective halls, but then they all came together for the same dining experience. So I was moved by that, and I went to yeshiva, the introductory yeshiva, more from the literature world, the Baal Tshuva yeshiva in Israel that summer. This is 1985, and when I came back, they tried to talk me into staying in Israel, but I didn't. I was going to come back and make a movie. We'll get to that later, but I was going to make a senior movie at Wesleyan. But at the same time, I knew I wanted to become religious or more religious. And I didn't think I could do that so easily staying at Wesleyan because there was no support group over there. So I decided to stay in Boston and work at a little kosher restaurant there called Cafe Shalom. And I was looking for a place where I felt comfortable growing in Yiddishkeit. Tried a couple of different congregations in the Boston area, and I was having a little trouble relating to where I was going, finding a place where that I thought was a good fit for me. And one day in the fall, it was probably in October, I visited Wesleyan, which is in Connecticut, and spoke to a student who had just started there from Hartford. And I said, I'm going back home, but I need to stop someplace for the Sabbath. And she was from Hartford, so she suggested this Chabad house in West Hartford, Connecticut. And I went there for the Sabbath. And little unknown to me, it was actually Shabbos Sukkot. So I was so uninformed. I had never heard of Sukkot. And so I ended up there at Shabbos Sukkot. So I had a nice time. I went back to Boston, went back to put on my waiter apron, went back into Cafe Shalom. And the day later, this young bearded man shows up. Two bearded men showed up, and they were inquiring about me and sat down, and one of them was Rabbi Posner. So he had gotten the word from the rabbi in Hartford, look out for this guy, Lewis, as I was known at the time. My mother still calls me Lewis. Look out for this guy, Lewis. He works as a waiter. And that may be the only time that Rabbi Posner ever sat in any type of restaurant, because I never knew him to go anywhere. So, for that reason alone, I had to come to Chabad House the next weekend for Shabbos, and I felt much more comfortable there. There was a nice group of people, fun atmosphere. Rabbi Posner was, as he is now, he was very energetic, but even more so then. And so he was easy to get along with, and the chicken soup was good, and that was all I needed. And I just took off from there.
So what
like
happened?
the Wright brothers, I was like, I didn't really take off. I was kind of like hovering near the
So
sand.
what happened was the rabbi from Hartford did call me, and we had just come to Boston then. So it's like what am I supposed to do when I do? So I got Bruce Hurst, who lives in Chicago now. We do name drop over here. And I said to him, look, I gotta go. I gotta meet this guy. I didn't think I could just walk into there and say, ask for him and just talk to him. So I figured we have to do this whole covert operation. We're gonna go in there, make believe we just want to eat something, and then we'll find him. And that's what happened.
And it worked. The plan worked perfectly.
It was a perfect plan. Okay.
So after that, whenever I was in town, for that fall, I started going regularly. I went to my first Pagisha, I think, a month or two later. The car broke down along the way. That's something, that was a regular thing in those days. Cars got to break down. Rachel, who was Rabbi Posner's oldest, was a baby. She was 3 months old. So I think it's fair to say that I was probably Rabbi Posner's first protege. Isn't that fair, Rabbi? Yeah, I mean, you had Lyndon there, but
sure.
He was from. Yeah, he was from.
Before. He was there before. Yeah.
He was there from there before, and I'm happy to call Rabbi Posner one of my best friends. He was Masada Kedushin at my wedding and two of my children's wedding, and he's very near and dear to me. And
okay,
I don't know if he doesn't want to hear the praise. Everyone knows what Rabbi Posner is. And,
well, if he doesn't want to hear praises, did you know him before he went gray?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. We got all kinds of pictures. Yeah.
To Agent Emes, which is really what we want to hear about today.
Okay, I took a little too much time there.
No, it's fine.
All right. So you want to hear about Agent Emes?
Yeah, I don't want you to talk about me. I want you to talk about Agent Emes.
Okay. All right. So I was a film major in college, but that was more like film studies, watching old movies and analyzing the stuff. But I had made a film in high school, at prep school at Brooks, and I got the bug for it. I really enjoyed it. It came out well. People liked it. Felt good. It was definitely something I had an interest in. And so I majored at Wesleyan, but then being a filmmaker was not something that I thought happened to real people in the real world. So since I had discovered Yiddishkeit at the end of my college days, I dropped filmmaking. I pursued yeshiva for a few years. And after that, it was time to settle down, start a family, and of course, like any good Jewish boy, go into your father's business if he has one. So that's what I did. I went into my father's overcoat business in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and we continued to live in Boston for the next 12 years. But then after a few years, I found that some of my former classmates had hit it really big in Hollywood, had done very exceptionally well. Names everyone will have heard of if they've watched movies before, had any interest in Hollywood films. And I felt like, well, maybe this is really something I should have been doing, and I'll never forgive myself if I don't try. So it really took a while to figure out a way to integrate my new Jewish worldview with making movies, because for a long time I couldn't make the two go together in a way that made sense to me. And after we moved to Pittsburgh in 2002, and I had just made a professional film in Boston with Hollywood talent. It was a short film. It showed at a bunch of film festivals. It was 35 millimeters, called Advice and Dissent, starring Eli Wallach. Rabbi, can I tell them you had a little cameo? And
You just did.
he did. Yeah. So
Wait, does this mean that Rabbi has an IMDb page?
we put him in IMDb? Yeah, maybe a technical advisor. He could be there as an extra. And, which is what he was. He was an extra. It was a Jewish movie, so I was playing around with the idea, or exploring the idea of how do you make positive Jewish movies, because I decided, okay, I'm into movies, and how can I integrate the two? Do something positive for the Jewish world through film, deliver positive messages through film. So this short film was my first foray into that, and it was more for adults than for children. And when I got to Pittsburgh, I wanted to make more, but I didn't know exactly what to do. That year, every year, our school, the yeshiva schools in Pittsburgh, does a annual dinner. They usually produce a video of some kind. So right after I got there, they asked me to help with their yeshiva dinner, and it ended up being a fictional story about the honoree. And it was a fun little story, different than they usually do. And what happened is I started to hear back from parents saying, Chaim, Shloime, Moshe, Junior can't stop watching your movie. And I realized, because parents could get a copy of the video, and I realized that these Jewish kids had nothing to watch other than Uncle Moshe and puppet theater. There really wasn't much entertainment for Jewish children in the Orthodox world, especially past the age of 4 or 5. And one morning during davening, when I should have been focusing on Hashem, my mind started to wander, and this idea of making a video, an action adventure video about a little Jewish spy kid popped into my mind, and I wrote a couple of scripts, and we were off and running. The name of the show became Agent Emes. Rabbi Posner, I was always consulting with Rabbi Posner, sent him the scripts. I think I sent them to Rachel too at the time. And he actually had a very important suggestion, which benefited the series forever. The bad guy, because you got to have a bad guy, especially in any film for, adults or children, but especially for kids. Agent Emes has a nemesis, and his name originally was Dr. Ra'ah, like in Austin Powers, it was Dr. Evil. So I thought, okay, we'll call this guy Dr. Raw, Dr. Bad. Sent the script to Rabbi Posner. He took a look at it. He says, I don't think you should call him Dr. Raw. We don't want to use negative language, which I understood from the Gemara and Pesachim and other places. So I said, okay, so what do you think would be better? He says, we'll call him Dr. Lotov. So Dr. Lotov became the core villain of the Agent Emes series, at least for the first 5 videos, and he was a great character. The guy who played him was a great it was great for the part, and the name is really catchy. And I made 13 of these Agent Emes episodes with 4 different kids playing Agent Emes. The first one was my second son, Shalom Bear, who is now living in Atlanta. He's in his 30s, and my oldest son also had a role. He was the Chacham. And I brought together people that I just met in Pittsburgh to be parts in the show. Got a couple of professional actors and then mixed them together with locals and filmed these 2 episodes in the summer of 2003 and introduced the series really at the Kinas Shluchim that fall. And I would say that I didn't have a budget for advertising at all. And when I set up a table, they have a vendor section that when all the Chabad Shluchim get together once a year in the fall, most people know about that event. There's also, I'm not sure if there still is, but there was always a vendor event where people would sell their menorahs and their artwork and whatever things might be helpful to Shluchim. So I got a table to sell Agent Emes. And I had at that point 1 episode, I think, just 1 had been released. And no one knew what it was, but a couple of Shluchim took a chance and brought it home. And that's really how the virus started. And now Agent Emes is spread all over the world, like literally. I don't think there's a country where there's Jews that hasn't seen it, isn't familiar with it. And even though I have not made an episode for over 10 years, this new generation of kids are still watching it on Tovito, streaming it through my own service, watching old DVDs, and every generation seems to fall in love with it. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback, and I think it's been a very positive phenomenon for the Jewish world.
I think what was really important about it is always around the Jewish theme. Like there's always a Jewish message. Like the first one was the chauffeur.
Yeah.
About a chauffeur for Rosh Hashanah, and it dealt with a chauffeur of a car, and like the whole thing was like the chauffeur isn't kosher, and instead of it mean the chauffeur, I mean the chauffeur, whatever, the whole big thing, but it had that Jewish theme go through it. I think most of the editing of the stuff you sent me actually was the credit goes to my wife, who's the excellent, amazing educator. So she's sensitive to what kids hear, but the thing you talk about lo tov and tov isn't the Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Gimel and Aleph on the base, but it's something that the Rebbe was very, very emphatic about, not to use negative language. In fact, when there was a pasuk, like Hashem gave us the choice to pick life or death. That's what the pasuk says. The Rebbe would say to pick life or to pick the opposite. Meticulous about, or not even, or to pick life, etc. Wouldn't even end the pasuk. That's how meticulous the Rebbe was. I think that's how they rubbed off on us, obviously. Never to use a negative expression, like the opposite of life, instead of saying death, and having that sensitivity, and that's where that came from. And especially when it comes to kids, like I don't know if you remember, like there was some time, like he was cursing the guy out, so he came up with this, call him like, "Oh, you piece of rotten kugel," something like that.
Yes, that was also your suggestion. Correct.
No, I think that came from Chani. But anyway, then we're not going to argue about that. Doesn't matter. It came from 491. But that was the point, like to use funny words that made no sense, that would make them laugh, but if you say it in the right, say, "Oh, you're such a rotten potato kugel." They're like, "Oh, it sounds horrible," but it's funny. But it's you're getting the drama is there of him screaming at one person screaming at the other person, but there isn't that negative, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to break your head, and things like that. Which, because kids hear something and repeat it, and I can tell you, my kids watch these things a gazillion times, and that's why even in my head, the shofar isn't kosher. Always remember that.
So the funny thing about that is I had a couple of episodes dubbed into Hebrew. One of them was the first episode, the shofar isn't kosher one, and Shalom Bear pointed out, well, that's the one episode that's going to make no sense to Israelis because the word for shofar in Hebrew is not the same as chauffeur. But the next one, okay, the episode after that was if kids don't learn Torah, the world will fall apart. Hashem will destroy the world, or the world is supported by the Torah learning of Jewish kids. So in this episode, Dr. Lotov kidnaps all the rabbis. It's called Rabbi Nap. And because there's no rabbis, the kids aren't learning Torah. And when the kids stopped learning Torah, earthquakes hit Spitzberg, which was the name of the city where it all took place. And I just like that idea of visualizing this concept of the world being destroyed because the Jewish kids aren't learning Torah. And of course, the resolution was that even without the rabbis, Jewish kids love learning Torah, and the world was saved. But there was a lot of different. So one of the reasons I think I only made 13 episodes, I ran out of Jewish ideas. my Torah knowledge reached a limit, and I couldn't figure out any more ways to turn them into stories. But there's a lot of Hasidus throughout, especially in later episodes. I was actually telling a whole story that was really a sicha of the Rebbe. The one about the donkey and the three levels of taking the donkey and using the donkey to carry things and riding on the donkey, and the three, that's Mashiach's donkey in three different generations. So that's what the whole episode is centered around, where the bad guy is trying to steal Mashiach's donkey. And it was fun because I was able to get my kicks as a filmmaker, and also spread a lot of entertainment and education. So edutainment for Jewish kids.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, the Rebbe always. It's a classic example of someone getting a secular education, and instead of just discarding it and saying, "Oh, it's narishkeit and it's not kosher," to be able to find a way to use it in a way that promotes Yiddishkeit, and they're just amazing. The quality and the skill and all that went into them, and the entertainment. I remember we spoke about this, to make something, because of course you show something to a bunch of Jews, everybody's gonna have a different opinion, and we spoke a lot about it back then. Like, people were critical because it was too harsh, and your thing was, if there's no tension, the kids are not going to be interested. There's got to be some tension. There's got to be, a negative and a positive force that are conflicting with each other. Then you get their attention. So the question was, like, to what degree can you build up that tension without it being like damaging to the pure minds of these Jewish kids? And that was one of the big concerns when you were making them, which we discussed a lot, to find that
balance.
And to the parents who didn't want the kids to have any exposure, anything like that, the answer was, well, don't watch it. We're not going to make everybody happy. So, be it as it may. Hopefully they won't go find somewhere else.
So one of the really nice things is that we've seen, evidence over the years. It's been accepted in almost every type of Jewish community. There's Chabad, there's Monsey, there's Lakewood. I mean, all of these places. Certainly in the Haredi, the broader Haredi market. Now, the modern Orthodox, I never felt like I was going to get a large segment of that population, because presumably they were watching, some of those families were more used to watching secular material as well. And then the super frum who, wouldn't have a TV, don't even have a computer, that would be very hard to get that. But between those two extremes, it's been accepted. And that's something I'm very happy about. because all of these things, these concerns that we have, because you are always going to offend somebody. Like inevitably, people are going to find things to complain about. It's been remarkably resilient,
Yeah.
considering that.
Okay.
So, if any of your listeners are not familiar with Agent Emes, it's still able to catch trailers on YouTube and rent episodes through my website, which is yidflix.net. Yeah,
Yidflix?
yeah. Maybe Seth wants to put up a little
Post it, yeah.
graphic of that. It's YIDFLIX, Yidflix, kind of like Netflix, but not. And .net, and then there's another site run by Chaim Hertzkowitz, which is more of a Jewish Netflix. Yes, there is the Yidflix. That's right. So you can rent an episode for 3 days for $3, or you can rent all 13 episodes for a month, for 3 months, for 12 months. And there's all kinds of extras. Yeah, we got behind the scenes videos, bloopers. A couple of my other films are now on the site. But Yidflix, essentially Leibel Cohen's films. Now, and there's another site called Tovido, which Chaim Hertzkowitz has created. I think it's Toveedo. So Tovido has a wider range, broader selection of Jewish videos for kids, all for
That's
kids.
funny. I just, Chani just mentioned me. I was talking to Chani on the way home, and she mentioned something that one of her students had learned. And what was it? It was, oh man, why am I blanking? Oh, if a snake wraps itself around your feet during Shemona Esrei, you're not allowed to move. But if a scorpion does, then you're allowed to move. So my wife said, she asked the kid, like, where'd you learn this from? Tovido. I don't even know when she said that to me, like, what is that? Anyway, now I know.
So yeah, so that's Tovido, and Agent Emes is also available on Tovido. So there's different ways to see it. The whole marketplace has changed. I used to sell DVDs, but no, it actually is interesting because going back to the super from audience, when I started with Agent Emes, there was actually a thing to sell these movies on CD-ROM, not even on DVD, on CD-ROM. I don't know, Seth, if you're even old enough to remember that technology.
I'm aware
But
of it for sure.
so, CD-ROM just held much less information than a DVD. And you could store files on it so you create a little movie file and they would sell in stores. So this is for people who don't have DVD players, don't have VHS players. So I started selling it on CD-ROM and VHS tape, and then only started into DVDs, which was the media of choice through most of the time I was making it. But now it's all dead. All of that technology is dead. As a matter of fact, the last thing that's really still available in stores is little USB sticks. We've all seen the little USB sticks you could put in your computer. So producers of content are putting their movies on little DVD. And that's how some people in the frum world will, if they don't have streaming, that's how they'll buy their film entertainment on these sticks. And those will eventually disappear. We'll all be streaming. And just like in the broader secular world, producers have to figure out how do you make money now with people not going to the theater and people not buying VHS or DVD. How do you do it? So it's some kind of streaming, some type of streaming strategy, but it's much more difficult. So
good luck to the next person who tries it.
yeah, it's even when I could sell DVDs, it didn't make that much money. So now I think people say, how come people don't do more? I said, because nobody was as stupid as me to try. But I was glad that I did. And
No, Baruch Hashem, it's definitely, I mean, I don't know who's listening or what, but for if you need entertainment for your kids, which everybody's getting, instead of having these make believe characters that are talking Narishkeit, it's totally Torah centered, Torah themes, and it holds the kids' attention. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. Baruch Hashem. It's one more step in bringing Mashiach, because
Yep.
that's where we're at, and that brings us. Bring it up, so bring it up.
Yes. I wasn't sure if you were going to remember this. I wasn't sure if this was making it in or not.
Yeah, it is. I see. I pulled it in. There we go. This picture of the soldier was sent to us by Rivka Julia, who did a fundraiser for. She was doing a fundraiser for her son's unit, who was going into Gaza, and I think they pretty much raised the money they needed. And so she sent me this and said, "My son Noam is going back into Gaza with the." And this, I guess, this. I'm not sure how this Mashiach patch got onto soldiers' uniforms. I don't know if it's a Chabad conspiracy. I know that's how the Hanukkah menorahs got into Gaza, but this doesn't have any Chabad thing in it. But
because to me it looks like
valid. If you're having a war of good against evil, and this is Mashiach, bringing Mashiach energy, getting rid of the evil, and making the world, that much more prepared for Mashiach. So this is perfect. This is wonderful.
So these are pretty widespread now in the soldiers' uniforms?
I mean, I got one from her, and Seth got some. I found someone's.
I had seen one on Twitter that someone had posted. That's what happened. I had seen that and sent it to Rabbi Posner and jokingly said for the Pos-cast, and then he forwarded me this.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I think that this idea, just if you break it down, everything a person does, everything a Jew does in a positive way is to bring Mashiach. And if these soldiers are going there and wearing tzitzis and wearing tefillin and wearing a Mashiach patch, that's perfect. That's wonderful. That's good. We should be engaged in this battle. Hopefully, and I don't have to actually kill other people, just kill the negative forces within each one of us. The Dr. Lotov.
Yeah, there's one other point I want to bring. A lot of people have said to me, who suggested ways to make Agent Emes wider spread, more popular, sell more. There was, make something that will entertain non-Jews too, and everybody can watch it. Jewish people can enjoy it, and the non-Jewish world can enjoy it too. And I could never figure out a way to make the two worlds meet. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of months, we are truly a nation that dwells alone. And there's just two completely different approaches to life.
Mindsets.
Yeah. So there is no real bridging of understanding in that sense.
No, it's fascinating that you say that, because I think adults, college students are also getting that message just by fact of what's going on amongst their peers, that they are alone. Alone can mean, above as well, unique. And to find it and to translate that, I was talking to this guy, to the alumni I was met in Manhattan, in his work and his colleagues, he sees to some degree the same thing happening. And he talks about Shabbat dinners in Manhattan. People he never dreamt they're organizing Shabbat dinners. And that's just to bring Jews together, because we have this commonality that otherwise, what's the big deal? Jew, non-Jew. We had a couple of students, Hani had a couple of students over on Hanukkah, having a little fabring with them. And I came down and she said, explain to them, and the girl had a question, why she can't marry someone who's not Jewish. And it's almost something, all the arguments, all the discussion, it's something you just know that Jews are unique. They're part of the human race for sure, and we get along with we can get along with other people. But there's something inside of you that knows there's something different. That we have more of responsibility, we have a different mission in life, and you're right. There's no way if you did it any other way, you would pull all the neshama out of it. What would you have left? Yeah. It would be useless.
Right.
It would be empty. So that was definitely a good thing. So Friday is a fast day, which is very unique. There's no other fast day during the year that comes out on Friday. But this that comes out on Friday. Asar B'Tevis, when the siege was was made around Yerushalayim before the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. And the language the Navi uses Samach Melech Bavel al Yerushalayim. First Beis Hamikdash, Samach. Samach means to come near, to close, come close. But Samech Neifim Reifechelim in davening we say Samech Neifim means to support. So, and the Rebbe had this idea that when you lay siege around the city, you're actually supporting the city. You're fortifying the walls. No one can get out. No one can go in. So the people that are inside are really stuck inside. And siege was later was put around Yerushalayim. So Jews being stuck in Yerushalayim, that's pretty cool. If they take the idea to heart, we're in Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim means Yirei Shalom, complete recognition, respect, awe, fear of Hashem. And so the Rebbe said that this fast day can happen on a Friday because this is the turning point. When it first starts and you say, wait, we're in trouble. We got to change our behavior, and you turn it around. You avoid the whole tragedy that came afterwards. Sadly, we missed this. We missed that signal then. But that's the message to us today. If you have something that can be fixed, just fix it. Don't wait till it gets to the point that it's beyond your control. And I think the message is also like every little deed that you do has the ability to change the reality that's happening in the world now. Every mitzvah that you do. And that's what I said to this guy. I said to him, put your tefillin on. You connect your Yiddishkeit. You have a pair of tefillin because whatever he bought it. And start using them more regularly. And that's how you exist amongst people that you know are different than you, but you don't feel any lack of connection. You have a greater connection, a more powerful connection. That's our Yiddishkeit. And Hashem should help that these days of fasting we transform to days of rejoicing with the coming of Mashiach.
Amen.
Amen.
And
thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, Seth, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lau, for coming. Thank you so much for listening to episode 35 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We will see you next week.